Hello and welcome to my Android development application project presentation that I presented as part of my extended project for the advanced diploma. Right, I'm going to go ahead and show this Prezi application. I'm just going to go through what I presented just in brief, just to give you an idea of the process and development that I went through. I start talking about the idea here and just the basic principle at the beginning of the project to incorporate live times and schedule bus times into an easy to use Android application. Live times, when I say live I mean GPS real time times. I'll go more into how that is done. The inspiration, Greater Manchester app, two guys in Manchester, there they are, basically created an app because the GMPT, the Greater Manchester Transport Executive, essentially released scheduled data, not live data, as a data set public, so anyone could download it and use it for whatever development process they want to. These two guys, Josh Pickett and Ben Webb, actually used it to make an Android application called Time Finder. So that kind of was the inspiration for what I wanted to go forward to, although it wasn't the real reason why I chose it. It was mainly down to my own personal experience. As you can see there, I basically always use my Android phone to download PDF versions of timetables, and I also use the live time service facility in Travel South Yorkshire, which I will get into in a second. And like I say, my passion for the subject matter, I use timetables quite a lot on live data to get to college. It's really useful. The existing situation, now this is essentially just a YouTube video explaining how the actual process works. You basically look at a bus stop and basically just get an 8-digit number that is on the bus stop, put it in to a browser based or text it, and it will give you live data based on GPS in the buses. It is actually live. If it's not, it will display time which is scheduled. So there's trackers in the bus and it displays live GPS data to show you how far away your bus is basically. So if it's 5 minutes away, it will come roughly in 5 minutes depending on traffic. So there's existing systems browser based on your phone, which is what I use, and you can also use the text messaging system. So I want an alternative, so it's just an easy, quick Android application that you launch on your phone, put in the number and you're done, rather than texting a number and paying for it, or going onto a browser on your phone, using your mobile data and having to trunch through it all, put in your number and then find the link. This is how it's displayed on the browser. This is one from my local stop. As you can see here, it shows a time there, which means it's scheduled. There's no live data. For whatever reason, it's not being able to fetch it. And these are minutes, so it's actually live. So when I did this, it was 16 minutes away from this stop here, and so on and so forth for each bus. Basically, I looked at what other similar apps are out there, and there are some that do use this API that's available to developers. It's not free. There's the Next Buses app, but what this does use is it uses GPS rather than actually just manually inputting the number, which is much more easy. An 8-digit number you see in your bus stop, you input it and you get your live times. This uses GPS in your phone, which for one uses more battery on your phone, on Android anyway, on most phones actually, on the iPhone, and it will show you the map where you are. And this is also not instant, dependent on your signal, and it shows you the bus stops here. You click on them and then it will show you the live time. So there's no actual app that actually allows you to just input the data as if it's on the web page, but inside an app. And I want to allow people to put their favourite bus stops on there rather than entering it all the time, so within the application. And that's my phone that I'm developing on an Android 2.2. The timeline, so I contacted Travel South Yorkshire, received a reply and received access to the Travel API for testing purposes. It would usually cost about £120. I got free access to the live bus times, the live data. So like I say, it provides real-time GPS data from buses. I've also been liaising with an Apple developer who developed a similar app but using GPS, but he actually published the code on Android open source. He never actually developed a user interface, but the code is there. So I did kind of work on that. The requesting, in the presentation I did some handouts, a screenshot of me actually fetching the data in raw form via XML. I'm just going to quickly show you this, quickly go through it. As you can see, there is the username and password in there. I'm not going to go through that because I'm the only one with access to that, but basically you just, once you've got access authorization, you use HTTP post and then literally you have to request this XML data. So you put in your bus number. Now the user's not going to do this. This is all done throughout the app, but this is the raw form. As you can see, that number there is a bit long. Basically what happens here, this is the database. This is a massive one. This is just for all of Sheffield. As you can see there, it's really long. This is all the bus stops used. You can see a number there. So if I want to use that one, I basically copy that, put it in there, and I can request the data, and I will get a response here down in the body. So let's have a look at a bus stop right now live. Number 1, inbound. As you can see, there's an aimed departure time, which is the live time, and the expected departure time based on the current time. So it will elapse it, and it will also show other bus stops. But as you can see, it's very difficult to understand for the user. So the whole point of that was to parse this data, so you can literally see it as if what I showed you earlier on the web browser, but it's within an app. And this is also within the Travelline API developers guidance that I've got here. I also showed this as a handout. This is not freely available. This is something I got as part of my research. It's from Travelline. And if we just quickly scroll down here, this just shows you some example data. Basically, you put in your number there, and you can also use another code which is a little bit different. There's basically two ways of doing it. It's called a NAPTAN. It converts the SMS long digit that I just got from this XML here, this CSV file, and converts it from the easy to read bus stop number on the bus. As you can see, this is a response. This is using trains actually, but the same principle. And as you can see, the journey, the time, recorded time, you can see whether it's a bus or a train, so it can be used for various reasons. I'm going to go back to the application presentation now. So I found quickly that parsing the data would be too time consuming, considering I didn't get access to the API around 2 months before the deadline. So I had to, alongside this, move towards plan B of my project. So I corresponded with programs and Stack Overflow. That is part of my documentation, which you can look at. I posted a question on how to parse this XML data, because I had the data but I didn't know how to make it easy for the user to look at. So I had a plan B. So a very simple app that I've showed you is internal data schedule times. It works, the same principle, but it's not live, and the UI is not as clean as it would be on if I was going to go forward with plan A. But I worked around with a risk assessment. If I couldn't get it, I was aware I had to do an internal one. I had to have something at the end of this. So internal timetables around 2 to 3. I settled on two main buses that I use. Data storage, I looked at SQL databases, SQLite databases within Android, but I found it easy just to set the text of each bus entered inside the text function input of the Android application. User interface design, so what I originally settled on, if I go back to my app here, you can see the bus stops, and it is a little bit small. Not too small, but what the difference is I wanted to list the stops, just the stops here, and then you click on the stop you get, and then it goes to a new blank page with the time, so you can, it's a bit more free flowing. And then I showcase the application, of course, and the improvements I found. The app improvements was the layout design, as I just mentioned, the size of the text, splash screen possibly at the beginning, and a logo design I would have done most definitely if I'd have gone forward with plan A, because my plan A was originally designed to be published, publicised via the Sheffield Star, kind of like the Manchester guys did, but much more technically able with live times, whereas theirs was scheduled times. So I've kind of followed their route, but I did intend to do the live times, which is going to be a personal project of mine after this. Logo design, obviously, that's something I said I would have done. So the project improvements, I would have learned Java before I started developing Android, because Android development code is essentially Java. If you know Java, you know how to code in Android. So I should have probably learned Java if I'd have known a little bit more. Learn Java alongside this, and I probably would have had a better understanding of the actual how to facilitate live times via XML. I probably would have been able to do it. Be more confident in testing rather than just going through tutorials, hello world test applications and dictionary apps, which were my beginning applications of choice. More confident, just test around. I would have probably done research into software prior to development. Yes, I did not use Eclipse as I've been showcasing here. You You can see here, this is Eclipse. It's primarily used for Java, and then you install an Android plugin on top of that, so you can develop in Android. So I would have used that first, because I found that the Android developer site did use Eclipse, but what I did was I used blogs that used Adobe Flash Burrito, and I quickly realised that it wasn't the majority choice, and it was very limited in terms of its functions. That's more on in my written work in terms of what I do. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I've gone through it briefly, it was much longer than that, and yes, I answered questions at the end. Thank you for listening. That was my presentation on my Android application.